Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I cap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 30th of December, 2024. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So I know I've been AWOL again. It's been more than a couple of weeks now, I think, since the last episode, and we're pretty much at the end of the year now. I think this is going to be the final episode of the year for the Refuel, but as you guys recall, I did make a promise of sorts that in the new year, when I get back from Japan, which will be about mid-January, I am going to try to get back to a 3-day-a-week cadence for the Refuel. There is no particular reason why I'm not doing episodes. There's obviously plenty of news and plenty of stuff happening to cover. I just haven't been doing them. I don't really have a reason for it, but I am aiming to, once I get back from Japan, as you guys know, I'm going to Japan soon. Until mid-January, once I get back, I will try my best to do a 3-day-a-week cadence. Not so much even for you guys. I know you guys love the show and obviously you want more episodes, but more so for me. Like, I miss doing this. I really do. I miss it being part of my routine. I miss educating people. I mean, I'm still doing education through the Daily Gwei Discord and on Twitter and things like that. I've been pretty active on Twitter lately, actually, because I just got so annoyed by so much of the FUD. I was just like, you know what? I got a little bit of time here. I got a little bit of, I guess, motivation to do some FUD fighting. So I'm going to do that. But that has obviously taken, I guess, time away from doing refuels and energy away from doing refuels. And I think the refuels have a much better effect, or a much more positive effect, on both my mental health and also all of you guys than shit posting on crypto Twitter. But anyway, enough about that. We got a ton to get through today, a bunch to get through today. And what better way to start the day or start the episode than with a bullish rant about ETH. Now, I know that the ETH price has not done anything interesting pretty much most of this year. Like, if you look at the start of the year, it went up. It's up from the start of the year. I think it's up like, I can't remember exactly what it's up. It's up by right now. I don't have a chart in front of me, but it's up a fair amount from the beginning of the year. Now, obviously, Bitcoin is up more. There's a bunch of other assets that went crazy, like meme coins and things like that. But if you actually look at and zoom out a bit, ETH has done remarkably well still since its bottom. And its bottom was what, 2.5 years ago now, June 2022, which was 880. It's up at 3.5 grand or 3,000, just over 3,400 right now at time of recording, which I think is phenomenal. Like, people always can contextualize this by comparing ETH to other crypto assets, when really, I think the only thing that you can compare ETH to is BTC, because of the fact that they have relatively similar market caps. But you can't necessarily compare it to things that have a market caps much smaller than that. Like, if you compare ETH, a $400 billion asset, to an asset with even $1 billion market cap, that is a tiny percent of ETH's market cap. So obviously it's going to move more aggressively, both to the upside and to the downside. And I've even seen so many people comparing ETH to just like $10 million meme coins. Like, guys, are you crazy right now? Like, there's obviously ETH isn't going to go like 10x to 100 million. Like, 10x for a $10 million coin is to go from 10 million market cap to 100 million market cap, right? ETH is not going to $4 trillion in like a week, for example. Like, it's just not going to happen. The market caps are just so vastly different here. So when you look at it from that perspective, I think ETH has done remarkably well. Obviously, people will say, well, it's been disappointing compared to other things, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I go back to what I always say. It's like, you don't have to just hold ETH. There are so many other assets you can hold as well as ETH. And I think, I don't know if I've said it on the Refuel before, but I said in the Daily Gwei Discord channel that if I was getting started in crypto today and I had maybe still a conservative bias, but wanted to be more degen and wanted to obviously take on more risk, I would probably do a 50-50 split between BTC and ETH as like my hodl conservative stack, and then the other 50% of It's 50-50 split of 50% of my stack in BTC and ETH. And then the other 50% I would put into a mix. Doesn't matter what percentage mix it is. You can come up with your own percentage mix here, but a mix between high quality fundamental based assets and then just pure gambling assets. I wouldn't probably exceed like 10 to 15% of my entire stack on the pure gambling stuff that is extremely risky. That is a really high percentage still as well, but I'm just trying to think through if I was getting started today, what I would kind of do there. But even that, you're not really guaranteed anything there. But what you are, not so much guaranteed, but what you are kind of doing with that 50% in BTC and ETH is that BTC and ETH are the safest assets to hold. They will appreciate over the long term against the dollar. So you essentially have your safe hodl stack you don't have to worry about. And then the other 50% you can do whatever with. Say you do like a 40% into fundamental backed assets that are comfortable to hold, and then 10% into these like meme coins that maybe you hold for a week and hopefully you make like a 10x out of it. I mean, obviously you'd be over the moon if you did that, and then you would rebalance rebalance that back into BTC and ETH, or maybe into your other fundamental plays. That's how I would kind of play things. I wouldn't be 100% ETH if I was just getting started. I wouldn't be 100% BTC. I wouldn't be 100% in any large cap, to be honest. It doesn't make any sense to do that if your goal is wealth creation. If your goal is getting like a 10 to 100x this cycle, then you're not going to get that from ETH and BTC. ETH going 10x is 34K. BTC going 10x is almost $1 million. That's just not going to happen. And 100x, forget about it. That's a pipe dream, right? Maybe in the far distant future, but definitely not anytime soon. But 100x in a meme coin, or even like a high fundamentals based DeFi coin, for example, or AI coin, something like that, is very possible and very doable this cycle. Yes, it's very hard to pick these things, but it's still doable. So that's a bit of talk about, I guess, like performance wise. But in terms of ETH itself, the tweet that I wanted to reference today for the bullish part of the rant here is that 22 of the last 24 trading days for the ETH ETFs have seen positive inflow, so positive net flows into the ETFs. And I know I said, I think like a while back, that focusing on the day-to-day flows is, I guess, kind of a fool's errand because it doesn't really tell you much. But when you start seeing these things play out over longer time frames, monthly, which is, I guess, like 24 trading days is almost a month, right? Monthly, and then obviously yearly, but we haven't even had a 1 year worth of the ETH ETFs yet. Once we get to that, that's when you start seeing trends forming. Now, if we go to the Farside website here, which is a website I use to track the ETH ETFs, we all know the ETH ETFs had a bumpy start, right? There were obviously a lot of outflows due to Grayscale's ETH, and then there wasn't that many inflows because it launched at pretty much like the worst time to launch, 23rd of July, which is basically, I guess, one of the quietest times in the crypto market. We obviously had a crash from March to then, but we had those outflows from ETH that lasted quite a while, but then we had a kind of long period of just generally quiet, not really many outflows, not really many inflows. But then things started really picking up in November. As you can see here, we started having these big inflow days, like 50 million, 80 million, 300 million. And that has since continued with outflows in between right up until today. And the 24 days that I'm referencing is basically all of December. And you can see actually more than that, 22nd of November to the 26th of, the 27th of December. Trading days does not include weekends, obviously. So we're not counting all the days between those dates, but we are counting the trading days here. And you can see the only two outflow days, one of them was $60 million of net outflows. Most of that came from Grayscale's ETH, which is obviously to be expected. And the other one was $75 million of net outflows, which was due to $103 million coming out of BlackRock's ETF. Now, that this happened on the 20th of December, which I believe was the day that things came crashing down a fair bit. Yeah, if I go to my chart here, you can kind of see that, 20th of December was basically the day that ETH went from like 3,500 to almost 3,000 again after the previous few days where things had been dumping. So that obviously lines up with that kind of stuff there, with the price action. But the general trend is up. We're at $2.7 billion of net inflows into the ETH ETFs now, and it seems like we're going to go up only from here, especially in the new year, as I personally expect ETH to perform very, very well going into the new year, especially in Q1. That's definitely going to lead to reflexivity for the ETH ETFs here. And I did make a prediction in my tweet where I said the ETH ETFs will see at least $50 billion worth of net inflows in 2025. I do not think that is far-fetched at all. We are already getting, like, if you annualize out the last 24 days worth of I guess, inflows here, you pretty much get to that number. And obviously it's not always going to be like that, but this is during a period of time where things are still relatively quiet. This is during a period of time where the ETH ETFs are still at around the same price they were when they launched. This is not in a period of time where ETH goes back to all-time high and goes to 5K and beyond. And you can actually see that from the BTC ETFs, that once it actually broke out from its all-time high and actually started going to price discovery, that's when the real monster flows started. Like, look at these consecutive days of hundreds of millions of dollars of monster flows into the BTC ETFs. Even back in November, October, you can see this. So it's obvious to say that the inflows are going to follow the price action, and we really have not seen what that's like on Ethereum yet because of the fact that ETH is not at all-time highs. It hasn't even broken 4K yet, but I truly do believe that's going to happen. I actually still think that ETH could see an all-time high in January. I know that may seem hard to believe right now, but it's not that far from here. I think once ETH breaks 4K, it's pretty much clear skies. 4K has been stiff resistance for years, all the way back. If you actually look at, like, I believe it's the weekly chart, you'll see that ETH has rejected 4K from all the way back in 2021, like 6 times or something. So when it finally does break, that is a huge signal to the market saying, okay, well, it's finally ETH's time to break through this 4K barrier and go to all-time high and beyond. And then I do believe they're going to see a lot of reflexivity play out with the ETH ETFs in 2025, especially given that we're going to have a more friendly regulatory environment in 2025, which, as I've mentioned in a previous episode, is going to be very favorable for the Ethereum ecosystem and specifically ETH as well. And this isn't to mention the fact that I do believe we're going to see filings for staked ETH ETFs come the new year. I don't know if they'll get approved in 2025, but I do believe we're going to see filings for those things. That, again, will start the engine. Like, oh my God, now I can get yield on my ETH ETF. Yeah, fuck yeah. Well, why not, right? ETH-denominated yield too. So I do think we're going to see that happen there. But anyway, enough of the bullish rant there. Hopefully that's a nice bullish rant to end out the year for you guys. But I really do believe that ETH is going to have a really great 2025. And contrary to popular belief, I still think the Ethereum ecosystem and ETH had a very good 2024. Not amazing, obviously, because there's been a lot of, I guess, trials and tribulations through the year, but I really do believe it had an amazing 2024, all things considered. We had the ETH ETFs approved. We had Denkun go live, which collapsed down costs on layer 2s. We had TradFi getting more involved, like BlackRock tokenizing their BUIDL fund on top of Ethereum. We had restaking go live with EigenLayer. We've had so many just good things happen. It'd take me forever to go through all of them, and I haven't prepared like a yearly recap episode here, but there's just so many good things that have happened. The biggest DevCon ever, the biggest, second biggest hackathon in the world, regardless of crypto or not, with ETH Global Bangkok. There are just an endless amount of good things that have happened in 2024 for Ethereum. So if that's considered a bad year for Ethereum, then bring on 2025, because like the bar seems to be very low if that's a bad year, right? So I really do think that we're going to have a really great year going into 2025 here. But enough on the price. I think the next thing I wanted to get through was, yes, some, I guess, Ethereum network, Ethereum ecosystem related tweets. So I put out this tweet the other day, and I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on this in the Daily Gwei Discord channel or in the YouTube comments. I basically racked my brain for a while over this. So I sat down and I was just racking my brain, going through it all, and I was thinking, what are the top 3 goals that the Ethereum ecosystem should focus on over the next 5 years? And I basically nailed it down to these 3. And I really want people to either agree or disagree with me on this so that I know if I'm heading in the right direction. But from my feel, over the next 5 years, the 3 high-level goals of the Ethereum ecosystem should be to scale Ethereum, obviously, but make it feel like one single chain and ecosystem. I know right now it can feel like one chain and ecosystem depending on which wallet you're using. Using Rabby is a breeze. I've been using it more and more lately, and it's just so nice having it like automatically switch the chain for me, tracking all my assets across all the different chains. It's just an amazing experience. But the thing I think that's missing, the key thing that's missing, that's still obviously annoying for users, and I know I get annoyed by this at times, is the fact that if I don't have an asset on a particular L2, I have to bridge assets in. Now, the reason why this is annoying is, I guess, 2 big parts. One is that it just adds an extra step. Like, I know bridging is easy, it is, and it doesn't take very long, but it just adds an extra step. And also, if I don't have access to my funds and I want to try out a new chain, say I'm on my phone or something like that, and then I have to essentially probably buy some new crypto and then bridge that in order to get to use that chain. I can't exactly use the assets I've got on other chains if I don't have access to them at that point in time. Obviously, not something that is probably going to be like that. It's something that a lot of people are going to experience, but for me, it is annoying. And the second thing, this is a really gray area. This is not tax advice, but I think the second thing is that depending on, I guess, your tax jurisdiction and depending on how your tax office treats this, bridging between chains, I don't want to scare anyone here because, as I said, this is a gray area. As far as I know, nothing is confirmed here, but bridging between chains technically could be argued is a capital of gain or capital loss event, because when you send ETH from Base to Arbitrum, you are trading Base ETH for Arbitrum ETH. It's the real ETH only exists on Ethereum. What you have on Base ETH and Arbitrum ETH are essentially like, they are IOUs, but the good thing about L2s is that the IOU can be escape hatched down to L1. So for all intents and purposes, it is kind of equivalent to ETH on Ethereum L1. But obviously there's multi-sigs associated with the L2, so it's not strictly equivalent, but it's pretty close, right? It's much closer than if you were to have ETH on another L1, for example. You bridge it over from Ethereum. But some tax offices around the world may consider this to be a taxable event, which is shitty, right? Like that's a really shitty thing. It shouldn't be that way, but hey, maybe it is where you are in the world. So we have to basically make it feel like a single chain ecosystem from the asset perspective. And I know there are a lot of different people working on this. One of the initiatives that you are probably all well aware of right now is the AG layer from Polygon. The I'm really bullish on the ag layer, but as far as I know, the unfortunate thing is that it's an opt-in system, which means you have to rely on these chains to opt into it. It's not something that just automatically happens. Do I think that chains are going to opt into it? Yes. Do I think that some chains are not going to opt into it? Also, yes. So we don't know. The incentives get a bit skewed. You could make the argument that, okay, well, why would Base opt into this if it would just if it would benefit their competitors, for example? Like, why would they want to do that? But I think that's, I guess, zero-sum thinking or negative-sum thinking. You'd opt into it because you want to grow the whole pie together. And then essentially what you compete on, and what you're probably already competing on at this point, is your ecosystem. You're not really competing on assets, because assets are so easy to bridge across ecosystems here. So I think that, yeah, you're competing on ecosystem, you're competing on apps, you're competing on products there. So that's the first point. The second point is delivering the rest of the current layer 1 roadmap, with potentially the Beam chain fork being the end. And this is springboarding off of what Justin Drake presented at his Bankless Summit talk. If you haven't watched that yet, you should go check it out. It's on Bankless's YouTube channel. But essentially, we have a roadmap in Ethereum. You guys know the Vitalik flowchart roadmap. That's basically a 10-year roadmap from 2020 to 2030, or at least that's how I look at it. We've delivered like roughly half of that roadmap, I think, at this point in time. So we've got about half left to go, which should take another 5 years, essentially. Maybe it could be shorter than that, but I mean, if I'm being honest, it's probably going to take 5 years, with the Beam chain fork being the end. So everything in between will still get delivered, and then the Beam chain fork could be the end here. Now, this isn't to say that it's the end of L1 upgrades, but in my mind, it would potentially be the end of the current roadmap, and then we'll probably just come up with a new roadmap, probably something that is a lot more conservative, something that doesn't result in many changes on the network over relatively short periods of time. So instead of like a hard fork every year, you'd have one like every 3 years or something like that, and you would obviously leave room open for critical fixes of certain things that need to be fixed in a shorter time frame there. So that's the second thing that I think we should focus on over the next 5 years, which is already being focused on, but I felt like it was worth just putting that out there. And then the third thing is ZK everything. ZK, I mean, from everyone I've spoken to, like, all the smart people I've spoken to, they all come back to the same thing, that ZK is going to play a role in literally everything that happens in the Ethereum ecosystem. And it's not even close, really. It's going to touch every part of the Ethereum ecosystem. It already is to an extent. And it is complementary to other technologies, such as trusted execution environments, or TEEs, which are getting popular, such as being able to do like encrypted mempools, things like that. Like ZK, obviously privacy, scaling, obviously, but it touches everything. That's my point here. So ZK everything, snarkify the EVM, get a ZK EVM precompile in Ethereum, stuff like that. That's the third thing here. So I think that those three are the high-level things, or the high-level goals the Ethereum ecosystem should be focused on. But if you have different goals that you think we should be focused on, please sound off in the YouTube comments or on the Daily Gwei Discord channel. But that's the way I'm seeing things right now. Anyway, enough on that, onto some core dev related news. So to wrap up the year, there is an AllCoreDevs update for 2024 and a 2025 outlook that Tim Baker has put together here. You can go give this a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But obviously the biggest thing happening in 2025 so far is going to be the Pectra upgrade, which I believe is probably still going to happen in like March, April of 2025, but there's been no dates announced yet, but I think we're getting very close to public testnets being forked to Pectra. Probably going to happen like end of Jan or something like that. So yeah, I could imagine a March, April timeline being pretty, I guess, like on the spot right now. I mean, we've basically been sticking to a March, April timeline for the last 2 years anyway of getting these things delivered. So that's what I think is going to happen there. And obviously 2024 was a big year. We delivered Denkun with Blobs and a bunch of other upgrades. The core devs have been working on Pectra all the way through. They've also begun starting work on Fusaka, which is the upgrade that's going to be coming after Pectra in 2026 here. And then after that, there's going to be, I believe, another upgrade called G Star Amsterdam, or some people are calling it Glamsterdam. So they're already planning out even further than that. So yeah, a lot of things happening on the core dev front. I think people tend to miss this stuff in the noise of, people saying Ethereum moves too slow, or Ethereum isn't focusing on the right things, blah, blah, blah. You know, we've heard it all before. I really don't think that's true at all. I think Ethereum is focusing on the right things. I think we have an amazing ecosystem of L1 developers and researchers, as well as L2 developers and researchers, and everything that the Ethereum ecosystem does, especially at L1 with the core devs here, is in service of that roadmap that I discussed there. Yes, things can change, implementation details can change, but the high level roadmap is still intact. That's still what we're going for. We're still following along with those parallel tracks that Vitalik outlined, because that's what we essentially think is the most important thing to do for layer 1 Ethereum. Another big thing that was placed importance on over especially the last 6 months with Ethereum L1 is scaling the L1. And now I've talked about this before. I'm not talking about scaling the L1 like something like a Solana or an Aptos or a Sui, right? Like a high performance L1. No, that's not what Ethereum is. Ethereum is not trying to be a high performance L1. That's the whole point of the rollup centric roadmap, is that we push the high performance execution environments to L2 and we make Ethereum the best decentralized settlement layer or world computer or trust machine that has ever existed, right? That's the goal essentially. But L1 scaling plays a part in that, because you can't be the best settlement layer if you're too limited, because then you basically lose out on certain things. Obviously, blobs live on L1, so we need to scale them up to service L2s. Obviously, the normal L1 fee market also can be scaled with an increase in gas limit, which I'm going to talk about in a sec. So yeah, there's a bunch of different things we can do here, but that's become more of a focus, I think, and it's probably going to be more of a focus in 2025 as well. All right, speaking of keeping up with Ethereum core development, Terrence from the Prior Labs team has put together a great little resource here that allows you to essentially look at all these different places to keep up with Ethereum core development. There are actually many places to keep up with this right now, as well as many podcasts and different kind of GitHub repositories and tweets and stuff like that. But the ones that I wanted to shout out here, for those of you who like podcasts, you've got Christine Kim's Infinite Jungle podcast, which I know a lot of you listen to already. That is actually probably the best way to keep up with core developer stuff if you want to go really deep, because she interviews people in like core developers and people around that orbit, which is something that I don't do. I essentially try to follow along with core development, but not as closely as Christine does. This is basically her full-time job at Galaxy, I believe. So definitely go check out her work and follow her on Twitter, of course, as well. And then you have the Ethereum Magicians Forum, of course, and the ETH Research Forum. You have the Daily Gwei is listed here. You also have Week in Ethereum, which is a newsletter that's been run for a very long time now, many years now, started by Evan Van Ness, but maintained these days by Andrew. I've forgotten his surname right now. I know he watches the Daily Gwei, so he's going to be mad that I forgot his surname. But yeah, it's maintained by him there. You can actually go check this out. If you click weekinathereum.news.com, you can see it's the same format it's always been. This is one of the first things that I started consuming when I got involved with Ethereum all the way back in 2017, because it was really the place to keep up to date with Ethereum. And it is what inspired my first crypto newsletter, which was the Block by Block newsletter. So yeah, you can go check that out. And as I mentioned, Andrew here maintains it, and you can go follow him on Twitter there. But there's also, other than that, there's also the Ethereum blog you can follow, and a Twitter list as well. This is probably going to be most relevant to you guys, I think, because you guys love checking out on Twitter a lot. I know I see a lot of you guys on there. There's the Ethereum L1 R&D Twitter list here, put together by the 2077 Collective. You can go check this out. This is actually really great. This essentially cuts out a lot of the noise and just focuses on Ethereum kind of core updates and core related things. So definitely go check this out if you haven't yet. But yeah, thanks to Terrence for putting this together. It's really great. All right, moving on. So I mentioned that we're watching the gas limit right now on Ethereum. There's obviously been a lot of talk about this for a while. I've covered it a bunch of times. Tony has come out with a great little website here called gaslimit.pix. I don't think I've covered this before, because I believe this came out after the last refuel episode. But essentially, you can go to gaslimit.pix and see things like which entities are signaling for the gas limit to be increased, but also what the total for the entire network looks like. So you can see that here on the homepage. So right now there is 20.8% of the entire network signaling for a gas limit higher than 30 million. The target is still 36 million here. Now, this hasn't really moved over the last few days, and I would chalk this up to being the holiday period. None of the big staking providers, except Coinbase did it, but like the other ones and I guess big staking operations, they probably don't want to change their setups during the holiday period where they're probably running on a skeleton crew. So I would assume that we're going to see this ramp up probably by mid-January. You're going to see this ramping up more until it gets to near 100% and we get the gas limit raised to 36 million there. But you can check out gaslimit.pix and follow along with this for yourself as well. But as I said, you can also break this down by entity. You can see here that the biggest entity right now, I believe, is Coinbase and unidentified. I would assume unidentified is probably a lot of solo and home stakers, and then Coinbase is the next biggest, and then you have OKX in there as well. But then you can see the list up here of all of the node operators that are signaling for a gas limit increase of 30 million or more. All right, so blobs have been on fire lately, and I don't think many people have noticed this, and I haven't tweeted about it because I don't want to get anything wrong because it seems a bit funny to me, but if you actually go to the Ultrasound Money website and scroll down here, normal L1 gas fees over the last 7 days, the average is 5.7 Gwei, right? That's the normal L1 gas. That's not the blob fee market. That's just the normal L1 fee market. Then you scroll down to the blob gas fee market, and the average for the last 7 days has been 17.1 Gwei. So that is actually higher than the ETH L1 average gas here. But as far as I know, they're not equivalent, because if you actually look at the amount of fee burn that's happened over the last 7 days with blobs, it's $1.1 million. Whereas for ETH at these levels would be more than that over the last 7 days. If I actually go down here, I can see what this looks like. Yeah, it's like 15 million. But I don't know if that includes blobs or not. So if I take away the blobs, it's still like just under 15 million or something like that. So the gas markets aren't equivalent, but you can see that even though we have a low gas environment on L1, where the gas fees right now are 3.2 Gwei, for blobs, it's been 17.1 Gwei, which is huge, right? That's a huge average for blobs. You can see over the last 30 days, it's been 11.1 Gwei. But then you go back further than that to basically when blobs went live, and they were free up until around November. And this is when I started covering the fact that blobs were in price discovery. And for the last 30 days, the average Gwei price for blobs has been 11.1 Gwei, so far from free. And we've burned $3.3 million worth of ETH from blobs. And that's what my tweet says here. You can see the screenshot where blob fees, when I took this screenshot on December 21st, so the period of December 14th to December 21st, blobs were a top 5 gas burner coming in at number 4 here, top 5 ETH burner coming in at number 4 here. So for everyone who was fudding that blobs wouldn't accrue value to ETH and that blobs would always be free and that L2s or rollups would switch off of blobs and go somewhere else, that's not the case, guys. Like, that's not the case at all. Blobs are on fire, and we're getting a blob increase in Pectra, obviously doubling, going to a target of 6 and a max of 9 from the target of 3 and the max of 6 right now. And then we're going to fill that up again because we're scaling. This is Ethereum scaling. We have these L2s that are these rollups that are using ETH as DA. There are other L2s coming online that aren't using ETH as DA, but this is the thing. ETH DA is still going to be used. It's still going to be full. There is still going to be growth happening there, even though these other L2s aren't using ETH as DA, because ETH as DA has a, in my opinion, premium attached to it. I really do think that rollups, so layer 2s, which are full rollups, so they're using ETH DA, really enjoy the security benefits and guarantees of using ETH DA, really enjoy the uniformity of using ETH DA. So those concerns that people had around ETH DA being bearish have been unfounded, I think. And I think I called this back a little while ago where I said that the blobs aren't going to be free for very long. It's going to get filled up and then we're going to have to keep scaling them. So people in this industry really need to stop talking shit, if I'm being honest, because that's what a lot of these people do. And it really annoys me, to be honest, how much shit these people can talk when the facts are right in front of you. People like to come up with their own realities. And you guys know me. I don't like to deal in narratives. I like to deal in actual reality. I don't like to come up with my own reality here. To be honest, I will sugarcoat things sometimes if it seems like it might be a little bit too bearish for ETH and Ethereum, because that's just a bias that I have. But I do try to stick to the truth here, and I do try to be as truthful with my opinions as possible. Back when I said that blobs wouldn't be free forever, that was not a fact at the time. That was not reality at the time. That was an opinion I had. That was a belief I had. And then now that it's come true, I can say that it's a fact now. It's an observable fact. And the funny thing about this is that you can verify it for yourself by running your own full node. You don't have to trust anyone else on this. You don't have to trust me. You don't have to trust the Ultrasound Money website. Go run your own node and you can verify this for yourself. You can there are commands that you can run to check this on chain. There are basically APIs that you can call there. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. You guys know I like to deal in reality. Really sick of these narratives at this point, these concerns as they call them, because just time and time again, we debunk these things. We basically prove the haters wrong, and we never get the credit we deserve, I don't think. We are held to a stupidly high standard as opposed to other ecosystems, and we really don't get the credit we deserve here. I still think that the merge was the greatest achievement potentially in software engineering in a very, very long time, because just the coordination effort was so massive. I don't think people understand how massive it was. All the relevant incentives, all the different things, all the stakeholders. It was such a monumental achievement. And people are now saying, oh, we should go back to proof of work. And they're not saying this as a troll. They're actually saying this seriously. They're saying, oh, ETH's price against Bitcoin hasn't done well since the merge. Let's go back to proof of work because it was better under proof of work. It's like, guys, are you insane? ETH's price against BTC did worse under proof of work. If you go from the top of 2018 to the bottom of the end of 2019, ETH went down 90% against BTC. It was proof of work that entire freaking time. Like the beacon chain hadn't even launched yet, so there was no proof of stake at all. Like, I don't understand this insanity that people say, oh, we have to go back to proof of work. No, we're never doing that, obviously, and the merge was a monumental achievement. So let's keep celebrating those wins. Let's try to not let the haters get to us. It happens sometimes, but yeah. Anyway, that's another rant that I'll finish there because I'm at 30 minutes here, but a bunch of other stuff I want to get through for now. So we have this little graphic here from Trent Van Epps that I wanted to highlight for you guys on the refuel. Now, this is one of the best graphics that I've seen, essentially going through the core, I guess, of Ethereum. You could call it the core of Ethereum, because you can see here there are a bunch of different teams that are all building Ethereum core. So these teams are the client teams, such as Nethermind and Sigma Prime. Then there are other teams like Consensus and Paradigm that are also building core clients, but are contributing in other ways as well. Then you have the Ethereum Foundation, which is building a core client, but also contributing in other ways. So you can see like a nice little graphic here of how everything comes together and how all these teams are really independent of each other. You know, for example, Paradigm is independent of all these other teams. They're not funding, as far as I know, these other teams. They're not receiving funding from these other teams. They're not receiving funding from the EF. They just decided, hey, we want to build an Ethereum execution client, which is Reth. And hey, we want to add value to Ethereum because they develop, they produce developer tools like Foundry, right? So there's a lot of value being added there. But you can see that each of these parties is distinctly different from one another, distinctly separate from one another. I think that you could potentially argue that the closest, I guess, like the way that these parties are closest is by some funding from the EF to these other core dev teams. And really that funding comes in the terms of validators. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was an incentive program, or essentially like a milestone program, where the Ethereum Foundation gave ETH in validators, so essentially gave validators to the core dev teams and said, hey, these validators are yours, but you can run them, and then over time, as you hit milestones, they become fully yours, and you can basically get the ETH in principle if you want, or you could keep it staked and get the rewards and fund yourselves via that. So that was really the closest relationship, I would say. Other than that, as I said, these teams are distinct. They communicate all the time, obviously, because they're all part of the same core here, but I just thought this is a really good graphic showcasing how it all comes together. So you should go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, moving on, just a little bit of, I guess, like an update, you could say, on the Ethereum Foundation here, where Cyrus basically asked, or tweeted out saying, if you did a reply all at the Ethereum Foundation and asked, what did you get done this week? Do you think you would be impressed or displeased with the responses? Now, one of the responses to this tweet came from Josh Stark, who is in the leadership team at the Ethereum Foundation, and he asked, why not check for yourself? It's not that hard to keep up with the activities of Ethereum Foundation teams, as most of it happens in the open. And he has a long list here of stuff that the Ethereum Foundation has been doing lately. And you can go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But it's kind of funny because I can see both points here. First point is that the information is out there for sure, and it's available. And if you listen to the Daily Gwei, you probably have heard of most of this already because I cover this as it happens, as it becomes news. But the second thing, and more to Cyrus's point here, is that this kind of stuff is not something that you can find in a central location. Like, Josh links to many different Twitter accounts, many different URLs here of things that the average everyday person is just not going to be looking into, not going to be paying attention to. And the easy fix for this is to get the @Ethereum Twitter handle to tweet out about these things. That's the easiest fix. To get them to tweet out about it, not just a retweet, a proper tweet, and get them to do that all the time. I believe that account should be tweeting at least once a day, about related Ethereum things. As I've said before, I would be fine with it tweeting out things related to core development, things related to L2s, but not like promoting any specific project or anything like that, but doing more, I guess, marketing from that account, doing more awareness from that account. I do believe, from what I've learned, is that account is going to be more active in 2025. But obviously, like I'm all about dealing in reality and not narratives. Until I actually see this happening on Twitter, I'm not going to essentially put too much faith in it. But from what I know, it is going to become a more active account in 2025, which should be exciting there. But essentially, yeah, I see both points here. The AF has done a lot. It's not like extremely complex to keep up with this, but at the same time, it's not very easy either because it's split up into various different parts here. And I understand that most people don't listen, like most people on crypto Twitter especially, don't listen to the refuel, don't watch the refuel because it is a pretty deep thing. It's not noob friendly. I understand that. Like people want to have like quick information too. Like you're not going to sit here and watch a 30 to 60-minute video every other day just to keep up with things. I totally understand that, but yeah, that's why the Ethereum Twitter account can add a lot of value here, which, as I said, I think is on the table there. But anyway, enough on that. Moving on to the next tweet here. So there was a big discussion around client diversity this week. So Hari here from Cantina said, client diversity on Ethereum was a mistake. And then, I mean, I'll kind of link you this tweet and you can go give this a read for yourself if you want to. But I replied to this because the whole tweet really annoyed me because Hari was specifically talking about the EVM and changes to the EVM and how it's been really slow. Changes to the EVM don't really do stuff that developers want, and getting even relatively simple things like EOF in has taken a long time and keeps getting pushed back. That I can sympathize with. But he blamed it on client diversity, and I don't understand how you could come to that conclusion given that pre-client diversity upgrades were much slower. And I know that may seem counterintuitive because you might think, well, we have like 10 plus client teams right now. Wouldn't the upgrades be slower because there's more people to coordinate with? No, because pre-client diversity, essentially what you had was, I think, a bit of apathy, right, from the Geth team. Parity ended up abandoning Ethereum and going to Polkadot. Then you had Open Ethereum, which was the I guess like the fork of Parity that was maintained by Gnosis, which then they kind of sunset. So it really became Geth in the end until we had this renaissance of other clients that came online, and now we have the beautiful client diversity that we have today. So the Ethereum ecosystem is shipping faster, and we have the biggest upgrade coming with Pectra next year than we did when we didn't have client diversity or didn't have proper client diversity. So blaming the I guess like shipping the slow shipping on client diversity to me is nonsensical. And then in the same tweet, Hari was advocating for faster changes to Ethereum mainnet, but also saying that we would be better off with just doing it with one client. That's nuts. Like, that's absolutely nuts. The chance of a bug in any one client is very high, relative, right? And it approaches 100% over a long enough time period. So saying that, he was actually saying he wanted updates potentially every month. So you would want a hard fork on a $400 billion network that is home and securing hundreds of billions of dollars, that is have millions of users, securing L2s, has all these other stakeholders, has all these other ETH holders that don't even know anything about Ethereum but just hold ETH and basically are confident that the Ethereum network is not going to rug them or go offline or something catastrophic is going to happen. So you're saying that we're going to upgrade that every month. Okay, sure. In a perfect world, we'd love to do that. But then in the same breath, you're saying that we should only have one client in that world. Are you in, like, that's just insanity to me. That is absolute insanity to me. I'm all for upgrading every month if we could manage that, which was not going to happen. But if we could manage that, I'm all for doing that with 10 clients, not with one client. Like, what? It doesn't make any sense. Like, the chance of a bug happening if you're doing an upgrade every month goes up astronomically because there are more changes happening every month. And some people will say, well, some changes are simpler than others, but that's not the point. The point is that even the smallest mistake can cause catastrophe on Ethereum, especially when it comes to Ethereum in a proof of stake regime, because of the fact that we have slashing, we have inactivity leaks, we have correlation penalties, we have quadratic inactivity leaks, we have things that can happen like the chain finalizing on the wrong chain. And one client doesn't mean that they can't go offline still, or a portion of the network can't go offline and the network can still stay online. For sure it can, because there's different versions of clients. Imagine a world where 50% of the clients go offline due to a bug, 50% of the network's still online, finality is not happening, but hey, the network's still online. That other 50% are probably getting wrecked by correlation inactivity penalties or quadratic inactivity leaks, right? Just, it's insane to me. Anyway, I don't want to rant too much about this, but I just thought that the whole tweet was crazy, and people who were agreeing with this were crazy, and that's why I felt the need to reply here. And then I basically spent the rest of the tweet saying that saying what I just said, we're shipping faster than ever, blah, blah, blah. And then comparing Ethereum to Bitcoin was also weird. Bitcoin hardly changes. So I still don't think it's fine for them to have one client, but it's much better or much safer for them to have one client than Ethereum because they don't change very often at all, if ever, really. And yeah, I basically covered what I said in this tweet with my little rant just then. So just wanted to cover that there. I think that, look, I don't think that Hari is a bad actor or a dishonest actor or was trying to spread FUD or anything like that. I just think that they as far as I know, as like a security researcher or security consultant, does a lot of audit stuff like that at low level kind of EVM stuff. I understand the frustration from that perspective, and I understand the frustration from a developer perspective around the EVM. But my frustration came from the fact that don't blame client diversity for it, because it makes no sense. What you can blame is the conservativeness of the core developers potentially. But that applies whether Ethereum had 1 client or 10 clients. And I would actually argue that Ethereum is better with 10 clients, because it means that what happened if that one team was just what happened if that one team was very conservative? Then what would happen is other teams would come along and say no, or other core client teams would come along, say we're going to build a new client because we want to be less conservative. And that's actually what happened with Ethereum, with client diversity. So, I mean, you can see it already. Nethermind and Aragon are way less conservative than Geth, for example. So when you look at it from that perspective, client diversity was a natural kind of thing that happened in Ethereum. We also pushed for it, but it did naturally emerge to an extent. And it is also one of Ethereum's greatest achievements. And I think it is the crowning jewel of Ethereum, right next to the amount of solo and home stakers that we have. Those two things, I think, are Ethereum's superpower. It's what separates Ethereum from the rest. It's the only things that I believe that other ecosystems will never be able to replicate, and also ETH as a money, as a decentralized programmable money. I don't think other ecosystems can replicate that. But when it comes to client diversity and the amount of clients that we have, true client diversity, and not fake client diversity like some of these other chains are claiming that they have, where it's essentially the same the same kind of thing, just with like a client that runs faster, and then everyone's just going to end up running that client. So you don't really have true client diversity. And solo and home staking, no other network even comes close to Ethereum. Like, they're not even playing the same game. They're playing like Little League while Ethereum is at the top of its game, essentially. So yeah, anyway, another rant about that. Moving on. So Kraken's L2 is now live on mainnet. So this went live pretty quickly from when they announced it, which is great to see here. Obviously, this is direct competition for Base, because Kraken saw how good Base was eating. Well, I should say how good Coinbase was eating with Base and wanted to join the party here. I've covered Inc before. I've covered what they're trying to do. They're basically going after, I think, like a more degen kind of crowd from day one. They're going after like the NFT crowd for sure. They're going after like the meme coin stuff. They might be doing some AI stuff. But yeah, you can go check out Inc for yourself. You can go use the network yourself. They've got like pretty much all the apps, or most of the popular apps live there right now. But more are going to be going live in the future, so you can go check that out for yourself. I'll link in the YouTube description below. But congrats on the launch, I guess, to Kraken there. I know these guys have been working really hard on getting this out the door, getting this on mainnet, and they've been working on it through the holiday period, it seems like, as well, because they launched this on December 19th, so right before Christmas. Pretty big deal, actually. An even bigger deal, given that like they launched it just as the holiday period was hitting, which means that, again, they're probably on, I don't know if they're on a skeleton crew, but they've been having less people in the office, so to speak, than they otherwise would have because of that. And I'm sure it's the same right now as we approach New Year's. But yeah, that's the gist there. So you go check out Inc for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, speaking of L2s, Unichain looks like it is going to announce in Q1. So they said here, public mainnet will be announced in early 2025. They have their public testnet that launched on December 21st here. And they say that Unichain mainnet is going to go live with permissionless fraud proofs from day one. That's pretty cool, because we know that Base didn't go live with permissionless fraud proofs from day one. I don't know about Inc. I don't know if they're live with permissionless fraud proofs yet, but with Unichain going live from day one in early 2025, that's exciting to see here. Now, Ryan Wyatt here from the OP ecosystem, he's the Chief Growth Officer at Optimism, said in a reply that we're going to see Optimism working to light up a bunch of chains to stage one, starting in Q1 and throughout the year. Base, Sonium, Uni, Mode, Kraken, World, Zora, etc., all moving to stage one. It's a big focus in 2025. With a common shared standard of OP stack, allowing for interoperability, obviously, which is a huge deal here. So yeah, looking forward to seeing that go live. All right, last thing on L2s before I move on to something that I wanted to talk about, which I promised I would talk about weeks ago, but I haven't done an episode yet, so I will get to that in a sec. But I quote tweeted this tweet from ePurplePill, who works at growth marketing at Eclipse, which is the Solana L2 or the SVM L2 on Ethereum here, showcasing that the Eclipse network did 7,435 TPS the other day. So this is on December 27th here. Now, you guys know that I don't think TPS is a perfect metric, but it is a metric. And it's great to see that Eclipse is essentially doing more TPS than Solana is because they're taking advantage of the L2 architecture. Now, of course, full disclosure, Eclipse is totally centralized, has a centralized sequencer. It is not using ETH for DA. It is using, I believe, Celestia for DA right now. But still, it's great to see that teams like Eclipse are taking full advantage of the ETH L2 architecture, bringing fees down for users while also achieving high TPS numbers here. And I quote tweeted this by saying, a modular ecosystem of layer 2s built on Ethereum is better than any monolithic layer 1. Been saying that for years at this point, but it is completely true, I believe. So yeah, you can go check this out for yourself if you want. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, last thing I wanted to talk about. So I put this tweet out on December 16th. This is 2 weeks ago now, where I said, I was wrong about maximalists. They are needed and should be embraced. I'm going to make the case for Ethereum maximalism on the next episode of the Daily Gwei, and why I think it's a good thing to have some subset of the community be maximalist. So this is the episode of the Daily Gwei, that the next one after where I tweeted this, and this is the episode where I'll make the case. So the term maximalism entered the crypto lexicon, I believe, when Vitalik wrote about Bitcoin maximalists many, many years ago, where he essentially described these Bitcoiners who were incredibly devoted to Bitcoin to the point where everything outside of Bitcoin was labeled a scam, was labeled useless, was essentially derided for not being Bitcoin, and so on and so forth, right? And you know exactly who these types of people are, and you've seen them all around, and you've seen how, I guess, religious and how much zealotry they have about Bitcoin. Now, I'm here to essentially break what I used to think, which was that maximalists are toxic for a community, to now thinking that as long as the maximalists remain a small subset of the community, they are very much needed. They are actually critical to a community growing beyond a small little subset of people because of the fact that they are the biggest supporters. They are the biggest early supporters. They are the ones who stick through the toughest times. And if you actually look at who people would consider to be ETH maxis today, and I actually believe there's a difference between Bitcoin maxis and Ethereum maxis. I don't think that Ethereum maxis, I certainly don't. I don't think that we think that other things are scams. I mean, there's a lot of scams. We don't think that everything's a scam. We see value in other things. We see value in other ecosystems, but we just believe in Ethereum the most. We want Ethereum to win, or we obviously have a lot invested in the Ethereum ecosystem, both with money, but also ideologically, and we want to see Ethereum win here. So if you look at who you would consider to be an ETH maxi today, obviously myself, right? Eric Connor is another one. He's probably more maxi than I am, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, you've got maybe even DC Investor, for example. You could say he's someone that's an ETH maxi there. I mean, some people don't think this, but I still believe that David Hoffman is an ETH maxi too. So you have this like list of high profile Ethereum community members that would be considered ETH maxis. Now, all of these people have been around for a long time. They've all been through the toughest times within Ethereum. They've all been through multiple bear markets of Ethereum. They have kept the faith in Ethereum for a very long time. They have become Ethereum's main marketing arm in the absence of, I guess, the EF doing no marketing, Consensus not really doing anything these days, and no one else really doing much marketing around Ethereum. And they have been there, as I said, through the toughest times. They've also been the ones to speak up the most and have been the ones to fight FUD the most and has been the ones to get into conflicts the most, of which all of you benefit from, by the way, right? If you have a problem with maximalists, if you have a problem with conflict, if you have a problem with people standing up for things and acting like maximalists for a thing, and you're benefiting from that, then maybe you should think long and hard about the fact that if you're benefiting from it, then it shouldn't be something that you're criticizing. And I'm not in favor of people being toxic. I'm not in favor of people calling other people arseholes or being like toxic maximalists. But I am in favor of FUD fighting. I am in favor of people calling out bullshit where they see it. I am in favor of people correcting misinformation. And that's exactly what a lot of us ETH maxis have done over the years. And we've done that, again, through thick and thin, through the toughest times. And on top of all of this, a lot of them have already made it, guys. Like, they could literally today, and for many years now, quit, take their money with them, and never look at this ecosystem again. And they would be totally fine for the rest of their lives because they've been around for so long. A lot of ETH maxis have been here since like the very early days. Like ETH ICO 2016, where they could have bought ETH for $1 or $10. They're still here. They're still evangelizing ETH. They're still getting into conflicts about it. They're still FUD fighting. I mean, I think like I'm a pretty good example here, guys. Like, I actually started the Daily Gwei YouTube videos when I had already made it, when I was already being set. I was like, okay, well, I don't like need to do anything anymore. But at the time, I didn't think like that, and I still don't think like that. I thought, wow, I suddenly have the ability to do whatever I want, and turns out what I want to do is just be involved with Ethereum, and that's what I've done since then. And that is true for so many of these people. They may not work directly in the Ethereum ecosystem in terms of working in a company. They may not work. They may not I work at the Ethereum Foundation, for example, but they are still working within the Ethereum ecosystem. They're still doing a lot for the Ethereum ecosystem that, again, they don't have to do. They're not forced to do. They're not just trying to pump their bags because their bags are already up 3,000x, right? So if you look at it from that perspective, that to me is incredibly bullish. When you have these people who could leave at any time they wanted to, still be involved, that means that they're here for way more than money. They're here because they want to see Ethereum win. They want to see Ethereum succeed. They want to make sure that Ethereum is treated the way it's supposed to be treated, not treated like shit, not treated with misinformation, but treated honestly and held to a high standard, of course. But they're here for that. They also, all these people, act as a way to rally the community together. Any community needs its leaders. It needs someone to rally around, or someone's to rally around. It needs its generals, right? And that's exactly what these people are. They rally the people. They get them bullish. They make it so that they feel comfortable being bullish during the dark times, especially. This year, I really tried to do that because obviously this year, it seemed bleak on crypto Twitter for Ethereum because the narrative was so bad for it. But in the midst of all that, in the turmoil of all that, people were still bullish. Like the ETH maxes were still bullish. I was bullish on the ETH ETFs getting approved by May 23rd in the face of literally everyone telling me they weren't going to get approved, in the face of all the FUD, in the face of people saying, oh, ETH's going to zero because it's not going to get an ETF. I still remained bullish in the face of all of that. And I was right. Like I was right. And then I rallied the community around that and kept people bullish on things. Like I'm not trying to just toot my own horn here, but I'm using myself as an example because I don't want to like speak for anyone else here, but it wasn't just me. There were so many other people out there, too many to name, that were doing that, right? But in saying all of that, as I said, I don't think toxic maximalism is a net positive. I don't think it's good for an ecosystem. I do think there is sometimes a place for it in that if you're dealing with an actor who is so dishonest, who gaslights all the time, who is just literally an asshole all the time, then you can be a little bit of an asshole back to them because they're not going to respond to anything else. And being an asshole back to them basically shows the rest of the community that this person should not be taken seriously. And there are a couple of people that come to mind right now. You could probably imagine who they are, but those people should not be taken seriously. If they're just going to continually gaslight and lie, then bye. Like, go away. You're not welcome here at all. We don't want anything to do with you. You're not a net positive. You're a net negative. We don't want you here at all. So taking all that together, that's the case that I'm making essentially, is that you have these diehard community members that don't have to be here anymore, but they are here because they love Ethereum. They want to see Ethereum win. They want to see Ethereum succeed. And also, I think above all else, it's really easy to be a maxi for Ethereum because Ethereum is credibly neutral. The Ethereum network doesn't care about this. It doesn't know what a maximalist is. It doesn't care about our feelings. The Ethereum network produces a block every 12 seconds, or produces a slot, I should say, every 12 seconds for as long as the network is above a 1/3 threshold of validators being online. It will produce blocks to eternity, essentially, until the end of the world, until something else happens to destroy majority of the network. It's going to keep producing those blocks, those slots, and it's going to keep processing transactions. So it doesn't care about any of this. But in saying that, by promoting Ethereum, by defending Ethereum against these attacks, by making sure that Ethereum wins, we strengthen the Ethereum network. We strengthen the value of ETH, which strengthens the value of Ethereum's economic security, which strengthens the value of Ethereum as a network that is attractive for people to kind of build on, that is attractive for people to build on because of the fact that it has longevity attached to it, that there is a high confidence that it's going to be around for a very long time, a high confidence that it is credibly neutral, it's not going to rug you, that you are going to be able to build your decentralized applications on this platform, and you're going to be able to scale them to the world as well on a reliable, secure, resilient network. That all, I think, comes back down to the social layer, which the Ethereum maximalists or ETH maxis are a huge part of. a huge part of in the fact that they have an outsized voice, but they are still a small subset of the community. I would say that if you're putting a percentage terms on it, 90% of the Ethereum or 95% of the Ethereum community are not maximalist, but the 5-10% that are responsible for 90% of the content, 90% of the vocalization of ideals, values, and virtues. And if you are someone who has an issue with that, if you are someone who has an issue with these people being combative, being somewhat divisive, going and fighting for the thing that you care about, well, maybe you have to rethink that. Because at the end of the day, I am fighting for Ethereum because I want Ethereum to win. I truly believe in Ethereum. I want to defend Ethereum. But at the same time, you are all benefiting from that. And I'm not asking for anything in return. I don't want you guys to pay me. I don't want you guys to give me props or anything like that. I don't care about any of that. But what I do want you guys to do is I want you to get involved in any way that you can. Get involved yourselves. You don't have to be a maxi, but get involved in any way that you can. And I'll do my best to promote you, because the Ethereum community is strongest when it has the most amount of people in it. Not the most amount of maximalists, not the most amount of, shit posting on CT, not the most amount of virtue signaling. It is the strongest when its community does things, whether that's building an application, fighting FUD on Twitter, writing educational posts, doing podcasts. It doesn't matter. Buying ETH, right? It doesn't matter. Doing any of that is helping Ethereum. You don't have to do what I do, right? I suggest not doing what I do. Maybe you could do a podcast, but don't do the crypto Twitter FUD fighting, because it requires very thick skin, that's for sure. And it does get to me at times, but hey, I'm only human. But anyway, enough ranting about that. I have gone for almost an hour. I did not think that was going to happen, but hey, I haven't done an episode in a while, and that is the final episode of the year. So I hope you all have a great New Year's Eve. I'm going to see you in the new year. As I said, it probably won't be until I get back from Japan. I'm going to put a date on it right now and stick to it. The next refuel will probably be on the, let's say, 17th, which is a Friday of January. And then from there, I will try my best to stick to a 3-day-a-week cadence for all of you. But on that note, that is it for today. Thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all next time. Thanks everyone.